Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we are going to be doing a 12-team PPR mock draft from the third overall spot using FantasyPros Draft Wizard. The roster positions for today's mock are 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, kicker, defense, and 6 bench spots. We'll be drafting up against the ESPN, NFL, and Sleeper ADP. Before we can get on into things, though, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you're doing up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And if you would like access to my PPR or half PPR cheat sheet and rankings, they're available. Link in the video description for $7.50 over on Patreon. So without further ado, let's get into this draft. So drafting from the 3 spot, to me, you are just picking one of the leftover guys from Christian McCaffrey, CeeDee Lamb, and Tyreek Hill. I personally have him ranked McCaffrey 1. If I was the 101, I'm taking McCaffrey. The 102, I am taking Tyreek Hill. And at the 103, I'm taking CeeDee Lamb. If you want to debate between Hill and Lamb, though, you could just have that debate to yourself. They are very, very close in my rankings. I have Tyreek Hill by a very, very small margin. Tyreek Hill falls to us here as McCaffrey and Lamb are the first 2 picks, so it's a no-brainer here to go with Tyreek Hill. I understand that he is banged up, dealing with a minor hand injury, so they are treating things very cautiously. Obviously, when you are a player with the skill set of Tyreek Hill and with all the accolades that Tyreek Hill has, you don't need to run Tyreek Hill out there having a million different practices. Him and Tua Tagovailoa have an amazing connection already. There's really nothing to worry about. Obviously, does it make me slightly worried a little bit? Yes. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to pass up on Tyreek Hill here unless multiple of his fingers got blown off, like his name was Jason Pierre-Paul. I am going to be drafting Tyreek Hill with supreme confidence. So after Tyreek Hill, we see Justin Jefferson, followed by Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Bijan Robinson, Breece Hall, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Jonathan Taylor, and Garrett Wilson. Close out the first round, a bit of a fall for Bijan and Breece Hall. Typically, I would say after the big 3 go, McCaffrey, Lamb, and Hill, you typically see one of Breece or Bijan following that, and a lot of the times you see both of them going back-to-back at the 1.04 and the 1.05. The second round opens with Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison Jr., Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams, Devontae Adams, Isaiah Pacheco, Chris Olave, and Travis Etienne. So we're back up on the board here. Currently, our team has Tyreek Hill as our first round selection. Best running backs available: Devon Achane, Josh Jacobs, Rashad White, Alvin Kamara, James Cook. Best wide receivers: Drizzy Drake London, Cooper Kupp, Jalen Waddle, Mike Evans. This is a question that I get a lot if you are picking in the early part of the first round. Things swing back around into the second round. Nick, are you comfortable? Because I know how much you love Devon Achane, right? I'm a Devon Achane truther. Are you comfortable drafting both Devon Achane and Tyreek Hill? Are you comfortable drafting Devon Achane and Jalen Waddle? The answer to that question is yes, because I believe the Dolphins will be a great offense this season that is going to be able to support multiple high-valued players for fantasy football. Now, if you ask the same question, Nick, are you comfortable drafting Malik Neighbors and matching him with Wan'Dale Robinson late? Or do you want to draft Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary, where you got to start them both every single week because they're on the Giants and they're dog shit? The answer to that question would be fuck no, baby. But in terms of offenses that I think are going to put up a lot of points weekly, I am much more comfortable doing so. If you're not, I'm not going to judge you. But personally, I'm fine doing so. I like Devon Achane a lot. I like Jacobs a lot. Based upon the swing that's going to happen, we might be able to get Jacobs inside of the third round. This has been a little bit more running back heavy, I would say, but not really, to be completely honest with you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 running backs through the first 21 picks. So honestly, I take back what I said. If you want Achane here, go ahead and get him, but I'm going to go ahead and go wide receiver. I personally don't feel very comfortable taking a quarterback or tight end this early. Now, if things wrap around in the third round and the quarterback or tight end that I really like is there, then I'm fine using Thor's hammer and smash picking them if I wanted them, but personally, I would rather go wide receiver or running back here. I'm going to go with Drizzy Drake London here because I think that Jacobs will fall back to us in the third round. So we're going to go ahead here and select Drake London. Drake London is someone that a lot of people are very nervous to select, but me, I am not really too worried at all. I think the Atlanta Falcons offense with Kirk Cousins under center will be able to elevate a guy like Drake London to potential fantasy football superstardom. Kirk Cousins has done it in the past with wide receivers, obviously Justin Jefferson, guys like Pierre Garçon back when he was on the Washington Redskins. So Drake London is a guy that has all the skills. He has just been let down mightily by the quarterback position over there in Atlanta. And the play calling also has just been as suspect as it gets with Arthur Smith. Now they bring in a new head coach, new offensive coordinator. They heavily upgraded quarterback going from Desmond Ridder, Marcus Mariota, going to Kirk Cousins. So I am very confident in Drake London. Brandon Ayuk goes at the 211, Travis Kelce, Josh Allen, and Devon Achane. Brandon Ayuk's ADP is going to keep creeping up. He was a 4th round pick, 3rd round pick in a majority of drafts. I think the late 2nd, early 3rd is where he will end up getting drafted in a lot of leagues. But if you aren't drafting with the sharpest knives in the cupboard and his ADP still says, oh, he goes at pick 40, some people might not reach up to take him because they might be unfamiliar with the fact that Ayuk is now going to stay with the 49ers, because not everyone is dialed in like you may be. If you're watching a video prior to your fantasy football draft, you're probably more locked in than a bunch of the idiots in your league. So you're back up on the clock here. Tyreek and London. We could go triple at the wide receiver position, but to me, it's blatantly going to be a running back pick here. Now, if this was a league that started 3 wide receivers and a flex, or 2 wide receivers, 2 flexes, I would be a little bit more thinking about selecting a wide receiver. My mind might trickle into going triple wide receiver off the rip. But since this is more of a default vanilla rankings or vanilla roster settings with 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, flex, kicker, defense, you definitely want to draft Josh Jacobs here. Josh Jacobs is on one of the best offenses in the NFL. A.J. Dillon out for the season. Marshawn Lloyd banged up. The depth behind Josh Jacobs is as weak as it gets, and I think that Josh Jacobs has that upside any given week to score 25 plus points. I understand that he ended up being a bust for fantasy football players last season, but I think he's going to bounce back now, getting off of the Las Vegas Raiders burning ship and hopping onto a bandwagon of a team in the Green Bay Packers. While his workload might not be as high, as hefty, like the garbage bags as he got in Viva Las Vegas, the boxes won't be stacked as much, and the team is going to be scoring a whole lot more points than the Raiders will weekly. After Josh Jacobs, we got Sam Laporta, Mike Evans, Patrick Mahomes, Nico Collins, Michael Pittman, Rashad White, James Cook, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Jaylen Waddle, Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Alvin Kamara, Deebo Samuel, Devontae Smith, Kenneth Walker, and DJ Moore. I'm interested to see if Deebo Samuel's ADP starts to plummet due to the Brandon Ayuk re-signing with the team, or if Deebo kind of just goes in a similar spot as he used to. So we're back up on the clock here. Richardson, Stroud, Kyler, best quarterbacks available, best tight ends available, Trey McBride, and Mark Andrews. There is still the car accident narrative going around. He has not practiced since the car accident, but he returned to practice on Friday. So that was actually fugazi fake news by Fantasy Pros. I saw a report on it earlier, and I just wanted to validate it by clicking on it. He returned to practice on Friday. It was a car accident, so there really wasn't anything to worry about too much, in my opinion. But since it was undisclosed, I guess that would have been a question on top of some of your guys' minds, like you're a sim, okay? So we're back up here. Best running backs, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson in the 4th round. I am not touching these guys at all. Pause. I just don't really want anything to do with them in the 4th round. When things swing back in the 5th round, sure, I like Aaron Jones a lot. Maybe I would consider taking him, but not inside of the 4th round, in my opinion. At this pick, knowing that there's so many great wide receivers, there is a tight end that I think could be the tight end number 1. There's a quarterback in Anthony Richardson, who I believe could be the QB1. So I'm going to go ahead and wait on the running back position. If you had to go running back here, though, it would be Aaron Jones. So at wide receiver here, DK Metcalf, Malik Neighbors still available. I normally at this pick would just close my eyes and select Malik Neighbors every time or select Rashee Rice. But this time we're going to go ahead and go with DK Metcalf. Why am I going to go with DK Metcalf? Because I don't think if you're doing a bunch of different drafts like I do, I'm not just in one fantasy league, I'm in multiple fantasy leagues. I do a bunch of best ball drafts over on Underdog Fantasy. So what I want to be doing is taking multiple shots. Now, if you're in one league, you're a Malik Neighbors stan like myself, then fucking walk up there and throw the pick onto the board, smash the draft button on your phone or on your computer. But to me, since we're doing a bunch of different mock drafts, we're doing a bunch of different drafts, and I don't want to pick the same players every time, we'll go with DK Metcalf. Now, DK Metcalf has been a guy that I've been historically low on, and that is not because I think DK Metcalf is a bad player. DK Metcalf is a huge player. Big, which is what I said, because I was doing some word salad there, and I got my words mixed up. DK Metcalf is fucking huge. This guy looks like what you would build in a lab if you were making a wide receiver that was going to be dunking on defenses, Giannis Antetokounmpo style week in and week out. Not only does he have huge girth, tonnage, the guy also is incredibly fast. He is fast as fuck, and it makes him basically the perfect mold to be a wide receiver. The problem is there's a lot of hype up about JSN, and Geno Smith was incredibly suspect last season, which makes me not super ambitious, not super excited to draft him. Now, again, do I think he's a bad pick here? Of course not, and I'm going to take him. I think he's a pretty safe bet to finish inside the top 24, and where we're getting him is our wide receiver 3, a guy that has big game upside. I am very confident in taking him as my flex after DK Metcalf, Trey McBride, Malik Neighbors, Zay Flowers, and James Conner. While here, basically every single time we would just take a quarterback or a tight end to get that potential elite onesie with Anthony Richardson, who has quarterback 1 upside due to his legs, or maybe snag a Mark Andrews to be that top 3 tight end, maybe even the tight end 1 in Baltimore. This time we're going to go with the running back because typically in these mock drafts, we avoid the running back dead zone like the Black Plague. The reason why we do that is because the running back dead zone typically has historically bad hit rates at the running back position. A lot of the time, you go ahead and draft a running back in the dead zone, it is going to be bad news bears for you. You're going to be drafting guys that end up absolutely sucking, so we typically avoid taking them, but there are running backs inside of the dead zone that I feel confident in. Guys like Aaron Jones, guys like David Montgomery, guys like Zamir White. So I'm going to go ahead and select Aaron Jones here again because we want to be doing different things as we draft. If you wanted to go Richardson here or Mark Andrews, that would normally be something that I would do. Now, why do I like Aaron Jones more than consensus? For one, the guy ripped off a bunch of 100-plus yards games towards the end of last season in Green Bay. I get that the Packers are not the Vikings are not the Packers. The Minnesota Vikings, the cold like Minnesota Vikings, are historically a team, at least in the Kevin O'Connell era, that is throwing the ball at an incredibly high rate, right? They're not a team that is running the ball at an incredibly high clip, but now you go from Kirk Cousins, and while Kirk Cousins gets a whole lot of shit thrown his way, Kirk Cousins is a competent quarterback. Sam Darnold will be fine. I think he could actually throw for a bunch of yards due to how good the Kevin O'Connell system is, but I think they're going to try to run the ball a whole lot more with Aaron Jones and friends in Minnesota, and Aaron Jones, when healthy last year, looked really good. The problem was, I talk about this a bunch, is Matt LaFleur uses the just the tip technique with the injured players. He doesn't throw you out there, throw you to the wolves, throw you to the dogs like it's round 5 in Call of Duty Zombies and the dogs are coming. The dogs are barking, right? What he does is he eases guys in. So Aaron Jones was healthy, quote unquote, ready to play, and then you start him and he ends up bending your team over a table without the use of lube or spit. This season, though, if he's able to stay healthy, then I think Aaron Jones could be a huge value inside of the 5th round, ripping off multiple top 12 games. And he's also a very proficient pass-catching running back. After Aaron Jones, CJ Stroud, Mark Andrews, Amari Cooper, Dalton Kincaid, George Kittle, Anthony Richardson, Kyle Pitts, Evan Ingram, Rashee Rice, Ramondre Stevenson, Higgins, Joe Burrow, Tank Dell, Calvin Ridley, DeAndre Swift, David Montgomery, Dak Prescott, and George Pickens. So we're back up on the clock here. Best players available at each position. Kyler Murray would be the best quarterback. Best tight end is Jake Ferguson. Now, looking at Jake Ferguson's ADP, we don't need to take him here at the 6.10. We could wait until the 7th round. Tight ends and the quarterback position are probably the hardest positions to discuss at a wide margin, right? Looking from outside of the box, because quarterbacks from league to league get drafted in very different positions. In some leagues you guys might be in, someone might take Patrick Mahomes at the 103. Why? Because Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback. He's won back-to-back fucking Super Bowls, and in that person's mind that selected him, they think that that is very valuable for fantasy, which I get, right? Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, but in fantasy football, you want to be taking the skill positions earlier. But there might be drafts where multiple quarterbacks go in the first 2 rounds. There's going to be drafts where none go into the 3rd or the 4th round. The tight end position is a little bit easier to follow. You typically know in about the 4th or the 5th round, there is going to be a big run at the tight end position. We saw it here. Andrews, then Cooper, but then Kincaid, Kittle, Richardson, Pitts, and Evan Ingram. We see it happen all of the time. But someone in your league, while typically Jake Ferguson goes a little bit later, they might start feeling petrified. They might start shivering their timbers like when Jack Nicklaus is outside in the maze in The Shining and he freezes to death, right? That's the level of shiver that will happen in your drafts. There'll be people with shit running down their legs. And to me, I'm not going to panic, but it is possible that you might not get Jake Ferguson in the 7th round here if your league mates are a little bit scared. Same thing goes with Kyler Murray if you wait for him to swing back around. Now, this team already has a tight end, so they're not going to take Ferguson, but they could end up taking Kyler Murray, which is ultimately what's going to lead me to select Kyler Murray here at the 6.10. Kyler Murray has crazy rushing upside. He is now another year removed from the torn ACL and the torn meniscus. Kyler Murray, when healthy, is one of the best fantasy football quarterbacks. Why? Due to the rushing upside. They bring in Marvin Harrison. They have Trey McBride. They have some other weapons there as well, like Michael Wilson, who I believe will be a recipe of sugar spikes and everything nice, like the Powerpuff Girls, for Kyler Murray, the short king, the midget man himself. Shout out Tyrion Lannister, to have a solid season. And while I love Jordan Love, it feels a lot better to get the guy that can rush for 100 yards in any given game, multiple touchdowns, a couple picks right before someone takes Jordan Love. Now, I am a Jordan Love stan. I've given the Gawk Gawk 9000 special to him metaphorically in a bunch of videos. If you've been watching for a while, you already know that. If you haven't been watching for a while, hit that subscribe button like it owes you some money. Hit that like button as well, whether you are new to the channel or not. But while I love Jordan Love a ton, I love him. You make me happy. Shout out Simple Jack. Kyler Murray feels great. Pause at this pick in the 6th round. After Kyler, Raheem Mostert, Zamir White, Chris Godwin, and Jordan Love. So we still don't have a tight end, but to be honest with you, I think we should wait, or we could wait. But normally, I actually don't love filling out my whole entire roster before going for the bench guys. A lot of the time, you'll see me take maybe a running back or two, a wide receiver or two, before I even fill my quarterback or tight end spot. But due to how our team is looking and due to my confidence level in the running backs, in the wide receiver, in DK Metcalf as my flex, I don't think that I need to take a running back or wide receiver here, and I am fine selecting Jake Ferguson. Now, I think it's going to yell at me and be like, hoo-hoo, you idiot, Nick. You drafted Jake Ferguson. You could have waited a little bit longer. But I've been talking up Jake Ferguson all summer. I love Jake Ferguson. I think the Dallas Cowboys offense is going to be amazing yet again. They don't really have too many other weapons out there outside of CeeDee Lamb. So I think Jake Ferguson is going to see a helping of targets over in the Big D Dallas. And I really think Jake Ferguson has top 5 upside. After Jake Ferguson, Najee Harris, Brian Robinson, Christian Kirk, Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels, Keenan Allen, Tony Pollard, Terry McLaurin, Deontay Johnson, Javonte Williams, the Cleveland Browns, Zach Moss, Jaden Reed, JSN, 9-inch Nicholas Chubb, Hollywood Brown, Jalen Warren, and Austin Eckler. So at this pick, we are just going to look at who's available and then look at our roster, right? Our running back core of Jacobs and Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones is a little suspect, but I do feel confident in him. I feel very confident in Tyreek Hill, Drake London. I feel mildly confident in DK Metcalf. Now, I definitely won't scoff at having DK Metcalf as my flex, but a lot of the times I don't end up drafting DK Metcalf. Looking at the running backs available, there's going to be a fall off relatively soon, so I might want to hop in here and select a running back, whereas the wide receivers are as deep as the Sarlacc pit. So we're going to go ahead and draft Devin Singletary here at pick 94. Now, I'll tell you guys right now, I am not the biggest Devin Singletary stan. I think he's talented, but I think the Giants' demise is potentially going to be the nail in the coffin for Devin Singletary. But if the team is able to, rewind the clock, go back to 2022 Giants, not 2023 Giants, then Singletary will be valuable at this pick. He's a solid pass catcher. He can run the ball. The offensive line, definitely a question. But at the end of the day, as my running back number 3, I like him. I just really like drafting Tyrone Tracy later on in drafts because I think Tyrone Tracy has the upside to overtake Singletary. After Singletary, the Niners defense, Tajay Spears, Christian Watson, and Xavier Worthy. So if you wanted to go running back with this pick, Jerome Ford's a guy I talk up a bunch. Jonathan Brooks is that guy that goes actually great with Devin Singletary. Why do I say that they match correctly like a nice wine and a steak? Is because Devin Singletary, is going to be the guy for at least the first half of the season. Whereas Jonathan Brooks is going to miss the first four games of the season. You probably don't want to roll him out there, assuming that he plays in week 5, and throw him out to the dogs, throw him to the wolves, and maybe he has a bad game in his first game back. But Jonathan Brooks possesses all of the talents, all of the skill sets of a dominant fantasy football running back, a workhorse running back in Carolina. A lot of the reports out of camp are very positive on the Carolina Panthers, saying that with their new head coach, the new system, it's going to be a whole lot better than the shitstorm that we saw last season. So I like Jonathan Brooks here, but I would rather go wide receiver in this range. Now, we have the guys that we like. Again, I'm kind of so on DK Metcalf. I think he's a fine pick at that ADP. I like the player. I'm just a little bit suspect on the team. So here, instead of just taking a fucking layup, right? Draft DeAndre Hopkins, kind of know what D-Hop's going to be. Sutton, you kind of know what Sutton's going to be. I'm going to take the 360 jump from the free throw line. I'm going to take the Michael Jordan slam from Space Jam where his arm just fucking stretches like Mrs. Incredible's ass, and I'm going to go with Rome Odunze. Now, Rome Odunze could be a swang and a miss. Even though I really like him, I will acknowledge that, right? They have Keenan Allen. They have DJ Moore. Maybe Caleb Williams doesn't live up to the hype. But if everything goes correctly, the scenario I'm going to paint for you, Bob Ross style, is Rome Odunze becomes the number 2, ahead of Keenan Allen, behind DJ Moore. He's in the 2 wide receiver sets. Him and Caleb have an amazing connection. The Bears are steamrolling teams, and Rome Odunze is feasting. The guy's talent level out of college is incredible. The only thing stopping him right now is big boy Keenan Allen. After Rome Odunze, Jonathan Brooks, the Ravens defense, Keon Coleman, Trey Benson, Dallas Cowboys, Ladd McConkey, Gus Edwards, Ezekiel Elliott, DeAndre Hopkins, Cortland Sutton, Jordan Addison, Chase Brown, Jamison Williams, Brian Thomas Jr., Curtis Samuel, Khalil Shakira, Jerome Ford, and Romeo Dobbs. Back up on the clock here. And we are probably going to go wide receiver because I do believe that Rico Dowdle will fall back to us. A lot of people are going to panic about Dowdle because, oh my God, Dalvin Cook's there. If you fucking opened your eyes and watched Dalvin Cook tape from last season and you think that Dalvin Cook is even going to remotely have a chance to touch the ball over Rico Dowdle, unless Rico Dowdle is out there fucking limping, unless they need to amputate his leg off, Dalvin Cook's going to be holding his fucking Gatorade. He might just be on the practice squad. He's not good anymore. We can remember the good old days with Dalvin Cook, but he's just not that guy anymore. So we're going to go wide receiver here because I think you might just get hit with the Rico McMillan. We'll come back. We don't need a backup quarterback or a backup tight end. Why? Because if you're investing in a top 10 quarterback, you're investing in a top 10 tight end, all that drafting a backup quarterback or tight end is going to do is confuse you weekly. Oh, Kyler kind of has a bad matchup, so let me play Goff instead. Or, ooh, I really like Goff's matchup, even though Kyler's matchup is good. And then you play the wrong fucking guy, and you're sitting there at the end of the week crying. You're crying yourself to sleep. You're getting so aggravated because you keep starting the wrong guy. Same thing happens with tight end. Don't overthink things. Just stay with your guy. If an injury happens, you pick someone up off the waiver wire. Don't overthink things because, again, you're also just burning spots on your bench where you could have these high upside running backs, these league-winning potential handcuff guys, these league-winning wide receiver shots deep on your bench, but instead you have fucking Kirk Cousins sitting there with the thumb up his ass, or you have Pat Freiermuth doing nothing on your bench. So I'm not willing to do that. So we're going to go wide receiver here, and Tyler Lockett being banged up. Week 1 is in question. Terrible news for him. Great news, though, for our guy JSN and DK Metcalf. We don't root for injuries, though. Knock on wood. Tyler Lockett in my pocket is just a absolutely atrocious pick. I have no idea why anyone would take him. Jacoby Myers, Joshua Palmer, Rashid Shaheed, Mike Williams, all available. And I think we're just going to go ahead and select Jacoby Myers. I don't like the Raiders offense worth jack shit, but I do believe heavily in the coach. And while they are going to run the ball a lot, Jacoby Myers is an incredibly talented guy. He was a guy that you could have started for in your flex option in a top 24 wide receiver a bunch of times as your wide receiver 2 last season. I think the quarterback play should be better. While they do want to run the ball a bunch late in games, they're going to have to throw. Jacoby Myers is a very talented player. We've seen it in New England. We've seen it in Viva Las Vegas. Last year, the guy had 8 fucking touchdowns. It was a top 24 wide receiver, 3 straight years as a top 30 wide receiver. But we can get him off the board as like the wide receiver 45 or to infinity and beyond even later. So we're back up on the clock here. After we went ahead and selected Mr. Jacoby Myers, Blake Corum comes off the board, followed by the New York Jumbo Jets, J.K. Dobbins, and Chuba Hubbard. I want something to be made very clear. The deeper you get into drafts, the more you need to stop worrying about ADP. You don't need to be a slave to the average draft positions. Oh my God, I'm going to have to reach 10 picks to take Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle's ADP says that you should be taking Zach Charbonnet in front of him. Well, Zach Charbonnet is currently injured and probably doesn't have the most amount of upside. His upside is capped by the guy in front of him. Rico Dowdle could hit Ezekiel Elliott with the steel chair. He could kneecap him like what happened to that ice skater back in the day before I was alive. So you might just get hit with the Rico. Meek Millie could be the number 1 running back on one of the best offenses in the NFL. And you can get him in the 11th or the 12th round. So you should be taking him every single time. After Rico Dowdle, Zach Charbonnet, Tyler Algier, Tyler Lockett in my pocket, skirt, Jalen Wright, Ty Chandler, Magic Mike Williams, Adonai Mitchell, Antonio Gibson, and Joshua Palmer. The 12th round opens with David Njoku, Jaleel McLaughlin, Kendre Miller, who, according to Dennis Allen, reeks to high heaven, Dallas Goedert, Jerry Jeudy, Caleb Williams, Brock Bowers, Darnell, here comes the Mooney, and Marshawn Lloyd. We are back up here. We currently have Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Devin Singletary, and Rico Dowdle at running back. Our receivers are Tyreek Hill, Drizzy Drake, London, DK Metcalf, Rome Odunze, and Jacoby Myers. So based upon how we want to construct our roster weekly, most weeks we want to have 2 wide receivers in our wide receiver spot, 2 running backs in our running back spots. Obviously, you need those guys. And then our flex is going to be a wide receiver because we have a Odunze, Myers, a deep wide receiver core. Now, obviously, if Rico Dowdle hits and ends up being this like top 10 phenom at running back, then we're going to play him at flex, or maybe he'll overtake one of the running backs on our team. So we're going to go ahead here and close things out with another wide receiver and a running back. Again, no need to draft another quarterback or tight end. So at running back here, I think that Kamani Vidal has kind of became an interesting pick. I do really think that Vidal is kind of cucked by Dobbins, cucked by Gus Edwards, but I'll never say never on the fact that I think Vidal might be able to overtake him. Now, do I think that's the most likely scenario? No, definitely not. And he does have to beat out 2 guys to really reclaim that role, but it is possible that he does. Braylon Allen, probably a safer bet. Khalil Herbert can end up as the running back 1 in Chicago ahead of DeAndre Swift. So I'm going to take the safer bet here and go with Khalil Herbert. But other guys I like here, Jordan Mason, the number 1 back now behind Christian McCaffrey. Vidal, I like Tyron Tracy. I think Jamal Williams is a little bit more interesting. Dylan Lobb. So we're going to go ahead here and go with Khalil Herbert. This could end up being a three-headed dragon backfield with Roschon Johnson and Swift and Herbert. Or maybe it's just a nice 1-2 punch, left-right Mayweather style here with Khalil Herbert and DeAndre Swift. So we're back up here, and we are going to go wide receiver. In between our picks, we are sandwiched by Brandon Cooks, Adam Thielen, Ray Davis, and Jared Goff. Here we are going to go wide receiver, and we're just going to go with one of the higher upside bets here. And we're going to go with Xavier, somebody touch my Legette, wide receiver of the Carolina Panthers. Now, Xavier Legette is a guy that I wasn't super excited about coming into the NFL draft, but he did get solid draft capital. He's on a team that I think he's going to be the number 2 behind Deontay Johnson. And if all this talk is correct about how the Carolina Panthers are a straight wagon, the Carolina Panthers are going to be significantly better than last season. And if Bryce Young takes that leap up, that step up, then Xavier Legette could pay dividends here in the 13th round. After Xavier Legette, Gabe Davis, Jordan Mason. The numbers, Mason, what do they mean? Bucky Irving, Dalton Schultz, Roschon Johnson, Braylon Allen, TJ Hawkinson, Rashid Shaheed, Amshathid, Vidal. Defenses, kickers, in between them, Pat Freiermuth, the immunized man, Ron Rodgers, and Taysom Hill. We're going to go kicker first before we go defense. Never ever reach on a defense or a kicker. The most I will reach is if you're in a draft with 16 rounds, you take one in the 14th round. If you're in one with 15 rounds, then you can go ahead and take one in the 14th round. If you reach one round, sure, ahead of where I would do it, but most of the time, they're my last 2 picks. The defense always goes last, though, because we stream defenses over here. We don't just take the best defense available. We're looking at their matchups for week 1, week 2, and streaming every single week. So if you guys need help doing that, if you're unfamiliar with that process, we are just big game hunting defenses every single week. We're trying to get that jump up on our opponents by having a defense that has a lot more upside. We're looking at offenses we don't think are very good, and we're going to be picking up defenses off the waiver wire every single week. I make a video every single week on Monday, right when you wake up on Monday. A couple hours in, maybe you're chilling at work at around 10, 11, there's going to be a video telling you guys which defenses you need to have on your fantasy football team for the upcoming week. So we're going to go ahead here and go with the Seattle Seahawks. They're always my pick. I don't remember the order of teams they play against, but it is the Patriots and it is the Panthers. While I do like the Panthers a lot, I do think early on in the season they might struggle. So we get an 86 out of 100, but never worry about your draft grade. It doesn't mean anything. All the draft grade does is be like, hey, Nick, did you take every single player that was highest ranked by our process? If you didn't, you can go take a one-way ticket to go fuck yourself, buddy. That's what they basically tell you. Same thing with ESPN, Yahoo, CBS, any website that grades or app that grades your draft. So Kyler, Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, Tyreek Hill, Drake London, Ferguson, and DK Metcalf. Our bench is comprised of Singletary, Rome Odunze, Jacoby, Myers, Rico Dowdle, Herbert, and Xavier Legette. Our defense is the Seahawks, and our kicker is Miami Fairbairn. So let me know down below in the comment section what you guys thought about this team. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you think it's just kind of mid? So check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. It helps me out a ton. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. And as always, good boy.